The 1.0 TCE engine is a 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol unit used in Renault and Dacia vehicles. It was first introduced in 2018 as the TCE 100 H4Dt engine in the Clio and Captur. It was also downgraded to TCE 90 later to fit into ecology rules. Then was updated to the TCE 110 H5Dt in 2020 and used in the Megane. Also, this engine was largely used in all Dacia models, and the same engine was used in the Nissan Micra as the H4Dt with a different plastic cover and the Nissan logo, but all technologies were the same. When it comes to common problems, I wouldn't say these engines were as bad as they were originally expected to be. One of the common issues is significant random punching in early model years between 2018 and 2020, but there was a software update that fixed this issue. So if you experience a sudden loss of power, contact your Renault dealership and have the update installed. Also, these engines are prone to oil leaks, especially there is a common leak in the valve cover seal, but fortunately it's fixed with the new seal and it's a very cheap solution, so it's not a big problem here. These engines use timing chains and they are not eternal. Renault claims that the chain will last the entire life of the engine, and they are not wrong, since when the chain fails, the engine will die. But on average, owners hear some minor rattling starting at 120,000 miles, so it makes sense to replace the chain kit in these engines at 100,000 miles or 160,000 kilometers to avoid chain jumping or braking. It's quite unpleasant that the phaser may also require replacement at about 120,000 miles, so if you consider driving your car for a long time, you should replace the chain kit along with the phaser. Also, it's important to use OEM oil or at least choose something with the needed viscosity to avoid premature failure of the phaser and chain tensioner. The difference between the 100 and 110 horsepower engines is that the more powerful one has two phasers, while the 100 horsepower model and 90 horsepower model has only an intake phaser, which makes it cheaper to service. Also, the 100 horsepower model has no hydraulic lifters, while the more powerful version is equipped with them. So if you own the H4Dt model, you may need to adjust the valve clearance once every 60-80,000 miles. But the procedure is only needed when the engine runs roughly and vibrates or loses power. If it works flawlessly, there is no need to invest in valve adjustment. Also, one more significant difference between the two versions of the 1.0 TCE is the fuel injection system. The 100 horsepower version has port injectors that are reliable and don't usually cause problems. The 110 horsepower engine has direct injection and suffers from intake valve contamination. This is not a serious problem, but just a feature of all direct injection engines that are used in city traffic and rarely run at high revolutions. Sooner or later, the intake valves will get clogged, and this will affect the power and stability of the engine's work. Fortunately, valve cleaning in a good garage is not an expensive service now. Other than that, I don't see a lot of problems with these engines. For their size and price, they are quite good machines that have extremely low fuel consumption and are good for city driving with good torque. You will feel a lack of power when trying to overtake someone on the highway, but other than that, the engine doesn't feel extremely underpowered. Turbochargers sometimes have problems with wastegates getting stuck, and you feel a loss of power and rough running, as well as get warnings and lights on the dashboard. Fortunately, the engine has quite a simple turbocharger that is cheap and easy to repair. I've seen some reports for excessive oil consumption, but I'm not sure if it's very common for these engines. They will certainly burn some oil, but as long as it's less than half a liter per 1000 miles, it should be fine and won't cause any problems. So I don't think the 1.0 TCE is a bad choice. The 110 horsepower version seems to be a little more modern in terms of technologies, but it also fails earlier since it powers larger vehicles like the Megane and gets a lot of wear and tear because of this. The TCE 90 and TCE 100 seem to be solid engines with affordable service costs, very good fuel economy, and they don't feel extremely underpowered. But of course, like any modern engine, they need extremely good maintenance to last long enough. And I believe 250,000 kilometers or 170,000 miles is a good average lifespan that you should keep in mind if you own a car with such an engine.